Welcome, councillors, members of the public and staff. My name is Councillor Scott Morrissey. I'm the chair for the public forum tonight. I declare the public forum open at 6:30 p.m. Everyone at the public forum is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply. I also ask councillors to observe the meeting requirements under Code of Meeting Practice and meeting etiquette. All present are reminded that the YouTube video recording is an official record of council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure that there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of the council staff, exit via the town hall foyer or out the back and proceed to the evacuation point. Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. Does any councillor present wish to make a disclosure of interest? No disclosure of interest. Moving on to the public forum. Members of the public who have applied to speak at the public forum are now invited to address the councillors present. Speakers are reminded that if a matter has been raised by a previous speaker, there is no need to raise the matter during your address. No decisions are made during the public forum. We're here to listen and then it will be heard during the committee meeting. Members of the public that have registered to speak in person will be called forward during the public forum and invited to proceed to the lectern. Speakers have been advised on your allocated time to address the public forum. A warning bell will sound when 1 minute of time remains. Speakers will not be able to present material as part of their speaking time. Speakers are also reminded to keep communication factual, polite and professional and to use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in the public forum. You're invited to stay in the public forum to listen to all other addresses or watch via Council's YouTube channel. If you registered a written submission prior to this meeting, please note that these have been provided to councillors. We have 3 speakers tonight dealing with, firstly, the City Planning Environment Committee, item CPE 26.010, which is the Brighton, Les Sands and Bay Street Master Plan update. There's 1 speaker there. And in the City Works and Assets Committee, we've got item CWA 26.015, classification of land at 127 Walleye Street, Kingsgrove, and item CWA 26.016, installation of lights at Scarborough Park Tennis Courts. I'll now call the list of speakers. So we'll start with Ms. Elise Trusas against the officer recommendation for CPE 26.010. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, excuse me.
There we go.
Good evening, councillors. I am Elise from Banksia. Wow, what an outrage. What is happening here is unacceptable. First Rockdale and now Brighton. We, the residents, are speaking loud and clear, and yet it feels like no one is listening. So I'll say it clearly. Enough is enough. We draw the line today. I urge council to stop being passive and start taking a firm leadership role on the proposed master plan. Our LGA is already suffering and carrying over 66% of density. The areas now targeted for further development are already under pressure. Traffic is congested, parking is at breaking point, infrastructure is struggling to keep up, and even sinkholes. At the same time, basic local issues remain unresolved. Just to name a few, reckless jet ski activity along the bay, hooning and unsafe driving along Bay Street and surrounding streets. These are not new problems. They've been raised repeatedly. While I acknowledge the great efforts of Peaceful Bayside, however, these problems still persist. So the question is, if existing issues cannot be properly managed now, how can council justify adding more pressure? This is where leadership matters. Council's role is not just to process planning proposals, it's to advocate, to push back and to protect its community. Right now, we are not seeing that leadership. We are seeing overdevelopment without accountability, growth without infrastructure, and decisions that risk permanently damaging the character, livability of what makes Bayside special. I respectfully ask that you act in the best interests of us residents, hearing us by taking a stronger position, advocating for us, and ensuring that planning decisions are balanced, sustainable, and truly in the interests of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to the next speaker, Ms. Gail Banos, in relation to 127 Walleye Street. Oh, is that team? Sorry. Is she online? Okay. Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes, I am on. Yes, I can hear you. I will put my camera on. I am speaking as a resident of Walleye Street in Kingsgrove. So my objection really is that I thought the intention for affordable housing wasn't for the council to compete against other normal house hunting people, families. The federal government wants empty nesters to downsize and offer their homes for sale to young families, which is what the people that owned 127 Walleye Street had aimed to do once they realised their married son and family had moved interstate, and therefore their dream of all living together no longer was a reality. This is a purpose-built house for a family to live in. I'm not sure whether the council's intention is to have multiple families living in this house, or if it's just to have a family in the house, one in the granny flat, which is a normal residential home in our normal residential street. I wanted to ask why Bay City Council have paid close to $3 million of ratepayers' money to compete with families who are trying to get into the housing market. I attended the auction of this house at the time and was disappointed that the family came close but missed out on buying the property and were competing against the council, not just another normal family looking to move into the area. Is Bayside Council aware that we have Housing Commission homes in our 2 blocks away from our street, very well managed? In addition, we have many homes, duplexes, granny flats in Walleye Street and surrounding streets. We have already satisfied both federal and state government housing requirements. Council is already diversifying, has diversity in housing. So what is Bayside Council's intention in buying 127 Walleye Street? It just seems to be an unnecessary intervention from council in our suburbs. In our street, really. We have everything here. We have diversity, we have our granny flats, we have council homes. I don't understand the purpose of you buying this house. Thank you very much for hearing me out, councillors.
Thank you for joining and expressing your concern. We always appreciate the feedback and the opportunity for you to participate. Thank you. Moving on to our next one, CWA 26.016, Mr. Richard Price from the Sydney Sports Management Group. Welcome.
Good evening, councillors. Richard Price, CEO, Sydney Sports Management Group. I also have my Head of Asset Management, Greg Roberts, in the audience. Thank you for the opportunity to present our proposal. We greatly appreciate it with regards to the installation of lights at Scarborough Park tennis courts. Sydney Sports Management Group is an established, privately owned Australian specialist recreation facilities management company with over 40 years of experience owning, developing and managing a variety of leisure and sporting centres. We are a trusted facility operator committed to working in true partnership with stakeholders and building long-term relationships. We currently partner with several Sydney councils and also commenced operations at the Much Park Tennis and Squash Centre in October 2021. We revitalised this important community asset, investing $670,000 in upgrading the lights, courts and clubhouse. The participation has increased significantly while also decreasing antisocial behaviour through active supervision. We commenced operations at Scarborough Park in April 2024. Since then, we have created a multi-sport community hub for tennis, basketball and pickleball. We are proud to be good neighbours and actively supporting the local community, including Ramsgate Public and also 8 schools. SS&G has a proven track record in development and construction, having successfully executed numerous projects with Sydney councils. In 2024, we executed a similar project installing lights at the Atarman Tennis Facility, Willoughby City Council, led by Greg Roberts, Head of Asset Management with over 30 years of experience. Building on this expertise, SSMG is committed to enhancing Scarborough Park tennis courts by expanding the community hub and existing services to accommodate a wider variety of residents who are unable to attend recreational activities during the daytime. The proposed development involves the installation of 10 poles at the existing Scarborough Park tennis courts. The proposed developments will provide the following benefits to the community: increased patronage and use of the site, discouraging antisocial behaviour during the evening hours, investment in infrastructure that will upgrade council's existing community at no cost to council, realisation of aspirations of the Scarborough Park Master Plan adopted September 2025, identifying the need for new lighting at sporting facility locations to create safe and usable facilities, extended hours of operation supporting additional local employment, expanded access for residents who cannot attend recreational activities during the daytime, ensuring a wide variety of community members can participate, potential for indirect economic impacts to improved health and wellbeing outcomes resulting from active lifestyles and lower dependence on public health services. We'll also have the promotion of wheelchair sports, enabling inclusive participation in tennis, basketball and other recreational activities, and support mental health programmes such as Smash Tennis programme, which SSMG developed, which will help to promote social connection, wellbeing and mental health through sport. In summation, SSMG suggests our investment will enhance the wonderful community asset and is in the best interest of the public and local community. The proposal outlines with the Council's community strategic plan in 2035, our Bayside community will be connected and feel that they belong. Thank you for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price. There's no questions from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this will be heard later on through the night. There's an agenda, so you're welcome to stay, but if not, it'll be live. It's on YouTube. So,
Understood.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you to our speakers and people who have submitted written submissions. There being no further registered speaker, I declare the public forum session closed at 6:42 p.m. The City Planning Environment Committee will commence very shortly. Thank you. Public and staff, I declare the meeting open at 6:45 p.m, which is the City Planning Environment Committee of 6th of May 2026. Everybody at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. I also ask councillors to observe the meeting requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. All present are reminded that the YouTube video recording is an official record of council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure that there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of the staff. Item number 1 is our acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. Item number 2 is apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Douglas. Who we move that we accept. Councillor Curry, Councillor Kasim. All those in favour say aye. Declare that carried. Thank you. And attendance via audio-visual link. We've got Councillor Brederhoff wishing to participate in the meeting via audio-visual. We have a motion, please. Councillor Kasim, seconded Councillor Barlow. All those in favour of attendance, please say aye. I declare that carried. Thank you. Item number 3 is our disclosures of interests. Does any councillor wish to make any disclosure? None received. Thank you. Item number 4 is the minutes of the previous meetings. Can I ask 2 councillors who are present to move and second confirmation? Councillor Barlow, seconded Councillor Kasim. All those in favour say aye. I'll declare that carried as well. Thank you. Items by exception, there is none tonight. We've just got 3 reports to consider. The first one is CPE 26.010, which is a Brighton, Les Sands and Bay Street Master Plan update, the feasibility studies. If we can firstly just have an officer presentation on that one, please.
Certainly, Chair. Okay, firstly, just a quick recap on how we got to where we are today. So in June 2025, Council considered a motion around looking at a complete streets program for Brighton, some opportunities around Bay Street, and also to potentially investigate high residential density in Brighton, Les Sands. In December 2025, we came back with a project plan that set out clearly what that work would entail. In February this year, Council then amended that to be clear that there was 2 components, the complete streets component, which could travel separately, and also to confirm that we would look at higher residential density as part of a master planning process. I'll come to, in a minute, the milestones along the way so you can see exactly where we are in the process tonight. And it is in our draft operational plan for next year as a project, if Council wants to proceed with it. So the adopted project plan is really a roadmap that basically sets out what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what the outcomes will be, and the timeline and likely cost. The outcome of that would be, if Council proceeds, is a comprehensive master plan. So that would drive future growth in the area, including residential growth, and also look at Bay Street in particular, and in terms of the complete street side of things, looking at the public domain and safety and livability. If that was adopted, that would translate into a planning proposal to change heights, floor space limits and zonings to match the master plan. And then the complete streets program would roll out in conjunction with that. Just a quick recap on the study area. It's the area in the sort of pink tone there with the black edging. So it includes Brighton, Les Sands, from Selwood Street down to President Avenue, and then it stretches along Bay Street back to Rockdale, and includes the sort of eastern end of Rockdale on the other end. So this is basically the roadmap in terms of milestones, and there's those earlier resolutions that I referred to at the top there. So essentially this is where we are now. So this was intended to be an early checkpoint in the process. The rationale was that we would look at economic feasibility and transport first at a higher level to determine whether there was merit in proceeding with a master plan, and just to check Council's level of comfort with proceeding. And that's what we're bringing back to you tonight, just so that you have some idea of what would be required to build an effective master plan, and whether that's something that Council wants to continue with. There's a second checkpoint here where we would engage some external help to prepare the master plan, and there would be some community engagement first up to help flesh out that brief. So that would be the next point, and we'd come back to Council with the results of that community engagement. If Council decided to continue from there, the master plan itself would be prepared, come back to Council for endorsement, go back to the community for engagement, and then back to Council for a final decision. So you can see from this milestone chart that we're very early days. These are preliminary studies that are just helping Council really make a decision as to whether it wants to proceed with the master plan, and if so, what the parameters might be. We don't have a master plan. We don't have a planning proposal. This is really just information to help council make a decision. So the two preliminary studies that we did, as I said, were really to help council gain some assurance as to what a master plan might look like before proceeding. So development feasibility was the first one, and that's really to understand if council goes to the trouble of developing a master plan, it ought to be a plan that will actually result in some change on the ground. That's the intention of it. And so the first part was to really look at what it would take in terms of development density to trigger commercially viable development. A master plan that doesn't trigger viability is essentially not going to result in any change. So we've done some testing. We chose 11 sites and we've run them through a fairly sophisticated model similar to what a developer would use to value a property. And the results of that are in the report, and I'll come to those later. On the transport side, it was really a case of looking at a high level at public transport, active transport and roads and parking to some extent to really see if there was capacity for additional development in this area, and if not, whether there's potential to make modifications to encourage people to use other forms of transport to make it work, and to see how those things would need to be modified if density was increased in the area. So on the transport side of things, there is some capacity in Bay Street. It obviously varies by time of day and day of week. The T4 rail line also has some capacity, accepting that it is fairly busy during peak times. So there is an opportunity for additional growth in this area, not completely using the existing systems and the way things are at the moment. There need to be some work done on the local road network for active transport and also to encourage use of public transport. Active transport, we do have some links already going to and through Brighton, and there's potential for those to be improved as well, particularly along Bay Street, to connect Brighton with Rockdale. Traffic and parking, similar. Busy at some times, there is some congestion, but we believe there are ways to accommodate additional growth that would be further looked at through a master plan. And the Bay Street corridor we think is crucial. It offers strong potential to connect the good transport available in Rockdale with Brighton, and that could be by walking, cycling and public transport. So the outcomes of the high-level transport analysis was that there is additional growth could be supported in Brighton. There does need to be more work done to identify what enhancements would be required to support that, but it's not out of the question based on our initial analysis. Traffic, parking, active transport, as I mentioned, would need to be re-looked at, and that will be done as part of phase 2 if council wants to proceed. On economic feasibility, as I mentioned, we created quite a complex model and tested 11 sites that were scattered throughout the study area, which is shown on the map there. The colour coding there, the purple colour indicates areas of the study area that where there is potentially viable development, and that requires heights of 10 stories or above. The yellow coloured area is the areas where there's lower viability, and there's various reasons for that, which I'll mention. So the low viability areas, the heights there would have to be generally 20 stories or above to reach viability. And some of the reasons for that involve the cost of acquisition. Some properties in those areas are expensive to acquire because they have water views and the like, and they're well located. Some of it has to do with ground conditions. In Rockdale, there's sandstone. In Brighton, there's sandy conditions, which create problems when you're digging basements in terms of the high water table. So there's a variety of reasons why those areas are more challenging for feasibility. In the purple area, the height's generally more around the 10 stories or above, and it varies by location. These heights are higher than have been considered in the past, and that's really the purpose of providing this information so council can make a decision on whether that's something they're comfortable with looking at further. In phase 2, we'd have to do some much more, I guess, fine-grained analysis to look at individual precincts and streets even, and look at urban design and amenity to make sure that taller buildings don't create shadowing and amenity issues, particularly in public spaces. So that work needs to be done. So some of the outcomes, as I mentioned, 11 sites were tested. Essentially, the model is something similar to what a developer would use. You look at the product that would be created, so the number of apartments, what they would be likely to sell for, and essentially you deduct from that all the input costs, which include construction, fees and charges, holding costs, interest, the developer's profit margin, all the things that it takes to get a building built. And then the residual is really the land value. So essentially the model includes those inputs, and the heights are, and the yield is essentially increased until you reach that tipping point where the profit margin can be achieved. The feasibility does vary across, even in those different coloured areas, it still varies location by location. And some of the factors there are what's actually on the sites now. So the cost of acquisition is a big factor. If you were to buy up a number of reasonable sized strata apartment complexes, for example, it would be very expensive to buy those sites. So even in the same street, the conditions vary. So it's not a kind of one size fits all. That's why the guidance that we're given here is generally in terms of the number of stories it would take to reach feasibility. So if we proceeded with a more full master planning process, we really need to look at things in a lot more detail. We need to test the heights and the impact of them in terms of creating a good livable environment for people. They wouldn't be consistent across the whole area. They need to be modelled and modulated to make sure that we got good outcomes on the ground in terms of amenity. We also need to look at the transitions into the lower density areas to make sure that that their amenity is also protected. The public domain will be very important, and that's where the complete streets also comes into this exercise, looking at this human scale on streetscapes so people are not overwhelmed by tall buildings, and improve pedestrian and cycling connections as well to make sure that the centre is accessible and vibrant. So the next steps, as I said, this is very early days. This is preliminary information gathering, essentially to decide whether it's council is comfortable to progress with master planning. That doesn't need to be a commitment at this stage. It's really just saying, do we want to start looking at this in more detail? So our view is that the transport and economic feasibility studies don't present absolute roadblocks to going further if council wishes to. But the feasibility modelling does suggest that we need heights generally around 10 stories and up to 20, and that there are some locations where even those heights won't produce feasible development. In terms of feasibility, it's not necessary to have feasibility in every location when the master plan is done. We wouldn't proceed if there wasn't feasibility on a fair proportion of sites. But as conditions change, some of those inputs change. It may be in the future that other sites that are not viable now become viable. And that could include as the buildings age and their values reduce. Since this work was done, we've had an interest rate rise, for example. So, that changes the calculations again. If interest rates go down, that'll also alter viability on some of these sites as well. So our view is that if council wishes to, it's okay to proceed at this stage with a master plan. If council wants to proceed, we would go out for some early community engagement as the first part of phase 2. To help identify opportunities and challenges and get the community's input in terms of how they'd like to shape the scope of the master plan and some of the outcomes. And then the master plan will be developed and come back to council for consideration before formal community engagement. And the Complete Streets project will continue in parallel, regardless if council wishes to keep on with that aspect of the project as well. That's it for that one. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. That was a really good high-level summary of the key points. I appreciate that. Have a mover for that?
I'll move. All I want to move is part 1, which is that council notes the findings of phase 1 transport study and economic feasibility study, and we receive and note the report. Thank the council for the work they've done, but I believe the amount of money that would be expended on the next bit, I feel, is not really the responsible way to make a decision. You worry about near Rockdale Public School. I'm glad you outlined it because that's where you want the height. And you don't want to end up with a Cogra public school where they can nearly touch them, touch the school. So that's what I'm moving, if I can get a second.
Is there a seconder for that? If there's no seconder, I'll move the original motion. There's no seconder, Councillor Barlow. Oh.
I'll second it. I'll just run it.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Barlow moving number 1. Councillor Brederhoft? Was that you? I can't see.
Sorry, I can't keep up. I'm not following. Which one is this now? Councillor Barlow's or
Councillor
or
Barlow,
the whole?
Councillor Barlow and Councillor Strong have moved the first recommendation only. And to just note items 2 and 3. And for the sake of debate, I'll move a foreshadowed motion, if I can have a seconder, that the original recommendation.
Second.
Seconded, Councillor Curry. Councillor Barlow, did you any other? I mean, you said, Councillor Strong, do you want to speak to the?
Yeah. Like the community, I'm just concerned at this development, the plans. I know that tonight we're looking at just taking it to the next level, to the plans, and I'll definitely, if it does go ahead, think we should really keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't get out of control. Developers want height to make profit. The community wants character, sunlight, and amenity. And I think that the council does have to have a role in this, because if we say no, the developers will just do it without community consult. I do not support 20-storey high-rise apartments in Brighton Le Sands, definitely, along the beach there, with all the issues associated with it. But what we have before council is not a proposal for towers, is whether we do proper planning rather than leaving the development to a developer ad hoc. If this proceeds, we should be pushing for clear limits on height, protection of sunlight to the foreshore, and people first approach rather than better streets, safer public spaces, and real community infrastructure. Any future plan must reflect the character of Brighton and not turn it into the Gold Coast. But I'm not just opposing towers, I'm opposing the idea that developer feasibility should dictate the future of our foreshore. If this process continues, we should be insisting on these height limits, protection for the community, and really put it out for a big consult, and also a good proportion of affordable housing, because I know housing is an issue. We do need more housing. So Brighton should be shaped by the people, not by spreadsheets. But tonight is about making these preliminary studies happen, and I do say yes to that, but I'm very concerned about them 20-storey high-rise. So any planning process that uses developer feasibility as a starting point is not what we deserve. So yeah, that's was that even on? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So respectfully, Councillor Strong, what you've described is the need for a master plan.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you've described in that. No, sorry, I'm talking. What you've described is the need for council to put some initial upfront controls over the style and scope of development, the number of affordable housing, the number of stories. All the things that you just described is what was in the original recommendation. That's what the master plan is. I think Councillor Barlow, again, is concerned about the cost of doing so, and her view is potentially that it may lead to nothing over a long period of time, and I absolutely respect that as well. So I just want to be clear on what, yeah. Councillor Councillor Kassim.
Thank you. Yes, I think that this public forum comment and Councillor Strong's comments, I think what they actually reflect is probably some confusion and maybe misunderstanding in the community around the process and what is being trying to achieve here. And I guess I'm wondering whether or not there is, almost the middle step we need in here, which is to give an indication of what the options are in the sense of process. So to give an indication of, the capacity for, as Councillor Strong has put it, pretty ad hoc developer attempts to do very, very large scale development in the place, and that being approved anyway outside of council's control, because I think that the local community doesn't necessarily understand that. And so they don't actually necessarily understand that this is in fact to try to protect them. So I feel like that information piece is missing here. Yeah, that's the main point. The other thing is, I guess, looking at the economic feasibility diagram, I'm wondering, is it possible to excise the yellow bits? Like, is there value in doing that in terms of when we set the parameters for any study, whether we just concentrate on, I'll call it the purple bits, but basically the parts which are only looking at 10 stories? Because I think that probably most councillors, along with residents, don't actually want 20 stories. So is there a way for us to just look at the bits which are economically feasible and proceed on that basis?
Mr. Barber.
Through you, Chair, our recommendation will be to leave those areas in just so that they can be planned and included in the master plan. Otherwise, they would stay with the heights and so on that they have now, which would be a lot lower than other master plan areas potentially. What it would mean is that most likely, for the majority of those sites in the short term, nothing would change. They wouldn't be feasible. There may be some that are held in single ownership or larger sites or older buildings. But I think you would still include them, and then it might just be that other parts of the area development happens sooner. Those ones, it may be a longer time until some of those input factors change, and maybe they become viable, and then at least you have controls over them which are kind of cohesive with the rest of the study area.
So would it be possible that the controls end up indicating that there is a height limit of 10 stories only, like across the whole area, including the yellow bits?
Yeah, through your Chair, as part of the master plan, we'll have a closer look at all the other sort of amenity considerations like solar access and those sorts of things, privacy, visual impact. And so that the height limits, the sort of more precise height limits will drop out of that exercise. But it might be that whatever's applied in those areas, fits with the rest of the area, but those sites just won't develop in the short term. And it's open to council now to say, to give some feedback on what your level of comfort is in terms of height. If it's 10 stories or 15 or 20, we can take that into consideration in terms of how we go forward with a master plan exercise.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my other concern is sequencing, in the sense that obviously there are a lot of low-rise single-story houses even in that area. But, once one or two 10-story things pop up, it actually makes it quite difficult for the remaining houses. So I'm wondering how that actually works in practice.
Through you, Chair, that is a challenge in an area where you have redevelopment at quite a different scale, and you'll see that happening around Sydney, and even in parts of Bayside, in areas like Arncliffe, along the Princess Highway and the like. And it will be the case that those areas will take quite a long time to completely redevelop.
So in the public forum, have you got there's no photography allowed or videos? Did you have a phone out?
Yeah, I was just scanning that.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just saw a phone out. That's all. Thank you. That's fine. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Barber.
No problem. The other technique that's sometimes used is to have transition, so you end up with a stepping up of the building, which is what we've done in the eastern side of Rockdale. The thing here is though that from the work we've done, that wouldn't generate feasible development, so there'd be no change on the ground effectively. But it's true that there is that period of change where you do end up with a difference in scale, and there can be some impacts from that.
Okay, and I guess the other element of sequencing is the whole complete streets process. So you're proposing here that that proceeds in parallel. What does that in effect mean? I mean, because it would seem that the Complete Streets process involves changes to what exists. So would they be included in the master plan?
Through you, Chair. So Complete Streets has a focus on the public domain, and particularly around accessibility and safety and amenity in the public domain. It could be done as a completely separate standalone project if council doesn't want to proceed with the master plan. The consideration really is that if, for the Complete Streets project, it's good to know what you're planning for. Is it essentially for what's there now or what the current controls allow, or are you planning for significant change, in which case public spaces and active transport and things might look a bit different to deal with a bigger population. So it really depends on how council wants to proceed. If you don't want to proceed with the master plan, we can just do Complete Streets based on what's there now and the current planning controls. If you do want to proceed with the master plan, we'd probably look at trying to synchronise them so that in the end the public domain and the end development outcome match.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, just to interrupt, but the that second component would be prioritised because the master plan and the developments, could be decades, but the second part of that will be going ahead with the master plan in mind. Is that just why that clarity? So it's not going to. We're not going to stop that for 20 years. We're still going to progress with that in the short term, knowing that there's a master plan there, and then that'll be integrated to the master plan.
Yeah.
And the master plan isn't set in stone. It can be adjusted and amended.
Master plan's a master plan, and plans can be adjusted over time. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I guess my other question is just, this is before us now, but if it was delayed by until next month, so that we do get the information on the Complete Streets, and so that there is an opportunity to do something along the lines of what I've suggested in terms of a sort of a background information piece for councillors, but also for local community, would there be any particular implications for that? Are there urgent proposals in the offing which we need to be taken into consideration? I mean, is there an urgency matter where we have to deal with this today?
Through your chair, no, there isn't. This is a project that was initiated by council to investigate. Brighton hasn't been identified as a TOD centre because there's no train station there, and it hasn't really been impacted by any other state government initiatives so far. So this is a piece of work, unlike Rockdale, which state government has already put additional development potential in there, and so the Rockdale master plan is really looking at a way to massage that into a good outcome without really increasing the density a whole lot more. Brighton's quite different. It's really a council initiated exercise. So if you want to defer it or not go ahead with it at all, there's really no reason to stop. The only thing that's happening, I guess, in the background is there is this the state government's housing delivery authority that any developer or property owner can make an expression of interest to have an application considered state significant. And they're popping up all over Bayside, and we'll bring a report to you next month to show you where they've been located and where they're at in terms of the progress of them. There is one I think there's only one in Brighton from memory. It's on the site next to council's car park, and from memory the proposal is asking for a height up to about 75 metres, which is close to 25 stories. It's at a very early stage, so there's no guarantees that it will go ahead or they'll achieve that height, but so the only risk, I guess, in terms of delay is that other things might happen that are out of council's control, which start to shape the area. But there's no predictability around who might put in an expression of interest for those things.
And just to confirm that if we did have a master plan in place, which is going to take a lot longer than that HCA, then that would supersede or circumvent the possibility of those things happening?
No.
No, okay.
Anybody can put in their expression of interest, and it's up to the HDA to decide whether it progresses or not. So they do have regard to the local planning controls, but in the case of the one next to the car park, that's double or triple the current height limit, and they're willing to at least consider it.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand in what way this master plan would actually protect the local community in terms of its... We're repeating everywhere here. In terms of its sort of amenity and the scale of development.
I think what a master plan would do is it would signal that Brighton has been looked at. So if there are further initiatives that are put out by the state government or, in Council's next housing strategy, for example, Brighton will have been looked at and there'll be something in place there. So that I guess it'll be less vulnerable to being other processes coming in over the top of it. The HDA process, it is not outside, doesn't have to be bound by current planning controls. But I think if the area had been looked at more comprehensively and it was a recent piece of work, it probably makes it less likely that some other process will come in and override it.
Okay.
Councillor
Thank
Curry.
you.
I guess one thing to consider is when with a master plan, you can control the process. It sets a standard, it sets limitations, and we've seen in other areas where we have ad hoc development, particularly with the state significant clause. And then there's, they are, because they're site specific, they then don't take into account a number of the factors that you raised, like amenity, all those things. Whereas if it's structured in a way and then over time delivered, then it creates a plan that then guides appropriate development that works cohesively with the area. So it's, I guess, what this first step being a feasibility is just that initial step of, we know these ad hoc developments. There's one example Mr. Barber just alluded to. So how do, so this is then considering what this piece of work would entail. So it's only a first step to say, then councillors can still, it'll come back to councillors for further consideration. It'll go out to community for their feedback. At the moment, other than, a small handful of people that may have contacted councillors, we don't really know the view of the community. And this is a transparent, democratic way for people to have their say. So I think, it's important that we do give people their say in a public and transparent way.
Can I say?
Councillor Berderhoff, yes.
Sorry. I don't think do you see my hand up?
I do now. Very small on a big
Sorry.
screen. That's okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I just wanted to say as well, I don't think that the community in Brighton is not asking for some change and improvements and across Bay Street. So for me as well, I think we should proceed with the master plan, but with the process of community consultation first. And what I would also like to see is the 20-story, the 20-story height removed or out of this entirely, even though I know, Mr. Barber, that's not what you suggested. But I think nobody wants to see the Gold Coast replicated here. So that's my view, I think, as well. And the other parties, I also would like us to really look into heritage and mention where we should protect houses when we move forward into consultation, so that we do a bit of a more sort of people-focused design rather than it is now, like sort of shape it a bit more better, I would say.
Thank you. Sorry, was there a question in that, or did you need a response, or was that just comment?
No, just a comment. And I think what we need to do is, like, I would not support Councillor Barlow's recommendation if that's forward, but also in the foreshadowed motion, I would like to make some changes, if that makes sense.
Well, I think just before this is, when we looked at this last year as like a plan to do a plan, or that we've done that, right? Now, what the master plan does is inform council's appetite for development. Just because there's a mention of 10 stories or 20 stories doesn't mean that's going to be the end result. What it means is that's where it's feasible for a developer to consolidate sites. it would be up to the developer on commercial terms to go and do that. And the reality is it may never be possible, but it does signal council's appetite. And Councillor Strong mentioned that we don't want these ad hoc developments popping up all over the place. A master plan seeks to address that by publicising his council's appetite for what we think is possible. There's also multiple opportunities where these, not only with the community, and Mr. Barber mentioned that step one is to go to the community now to inform the scope of the master plan. That's step one. So from day one, the community is going to be having their say, and there will be for and there will be against, but we need both voices. What it comes down to is my view is that if we sit on our hands and do nothing, development is inevitable in Sydney. Development is inevitable, particularly in Bayside, despite the prices that people need to pay to acquire these properties on commercial terms. But it's whether we do this in a planned and structured way or whether we do it in an unstructured, unplanned, ad hoc way. So a master plan will, publicise our appetite, what we think is reasonable, what we think is fair. It's not a planning proposal tonight. We're not rezoning. There's no development application. This is a plan for what the future of that area may look like. And that's a plan, and it can go and do state significant development outside of that, but at least we'll have some sort of informed approach and agreement as a community to say, well, here it is. It's inevitable. We do it ad hoc or we do it in a structured way. And that's why I've moved the original motion, because I think we need to do that. And Councillor Brettelhoff, your concern in relation to 20 stories, there's always, there's multiple touch points that come back. Remember, tonight is only a recommendation to the full council. And within a master plan at any of those touch points, we can look at different options for the master plan. We might say it might come back, for example, that in one area, we might have a council may decide that we've got an appetite for a higher density or a higher physical height in a certain area, and that might be compensated by a lower height. We might say, well, there's 18 or 20 stories here, but only 8 stories there, because these are the things that are discussed over the next, months, maybe year, which will inform the master plan. That's my comment. Is there any further discussion?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Barlow. Hold on. Councillor Barlow have a right to reply. I just want to make sure that everyone's had their say. Councillor Brettelhoff?
I do think that 20 stories in Brighton sends a signal if we do send this out. It sends a signal that we are, in fact, even though it's not feasible, as we've said, but it sends a signal that we as a council would be open to that. So why can't we just shrink it down and say, no, we're not open to that, because we don't want 20 stories there. So, I get your point, but the perception of the community has been really strong in saying that we don't want 20 stories. And I very much agree with that. So I think there's no harm in taking that out and saying, no, we're not going to go that way, and moving to a lower story feasibility, or then it will not be feasible.
Mr. Bard, do you want to comment on what that might look like?
Chair, look, it is open to council to set the parameters for us to go forward with the master plan. That was really the purpose of bringing it up, to sort of say this is what broader feasibility would require, up to 20, and over in some of those areas which you think are not feasible. And I guess that those limits wouldn't apply universally. It might be that the majority of it is 10 or closer to 10, and there are only some locations that need to be higher to be feasible. So it is open to council to I guess indicate where its level of comfort is for us to go forward. That might mean that there are some sites that are not feasible in the short or medium or even long term. That's okay. The master plan will be put in place over them. They may change one day if they don't. At least I think it's only worth proceeding if the majority of the area will be feasible. And I think if it was reduced down below 20, that's still likely to be the case.
Councillor Naji wants to talk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I really,
He's got a mic in front of him.
I'm really enjoying this debate. But let's not forget that smart planning, good planning, successful planning, you need a master plan. Master plan are there for a reason. And master plan, I think we are preempting what the community wants, and we are preempting what the findings will be from that feasibility studies. I think we need to go out to those studies and find out and bring it back to council, then it can be debated. The fear that has been instilled in the community about 20 stories. Yeah, of course, there is a number of residents that would hate to see that. But there is, again, a number of residents that might probably will see that, wants to see that. Now, what I strongly believe, okay, I know Brighton really well. Who doesn't? We live in the area, we visit Brighton on the weekends and everywhere. Not only that it's dying, that we need to do something. We need to have a master plan with really smart planning. And the only way is having these special consultants to come back to us and tell us what they think. Now, I know Mr. Barber mentioned between 10 and 20. Don't hold him at 20. You know, the findings could come back from the consultant that, okay, it might be 10 to 12 or 14. Maybe that is the most. Who knows? But let's find the findings first and come back and have a proper debate. We're not going out now and saying, let's build these high rises. No, but we need to have a master plan. That is a smart way of doing things. That is the proper way that council should do. We've done master plan in Rockdale. We've done master plan in other areas of the LGA. And it's about time to revisit and have a master plan at Brighton. Let me remind some councillors when the last 2-3 terms, we've had under Mr. Michael McCabe, when he was the director, we've had twice or 3 times possibly, maybe twice. I'm not sure about the third time. We had 2 different consultants go do the work, come back to us, and guess what? By the time they got back to us and that there was a new council, new councillors, then the priorities change. So if we want to be fair income, let's go out there, do a feasibility study, do a master plan. And of course, who said that the community will not be consulted? It's in the process. The community will be consulted and will hear their feedback. And I think, anyway, I'm not in a council, so I can't vote in this. I'll be able to debate in the council chamber and give out my opinion again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nagy. Councillor Byrider for reply.
One thing you've got to worry is the part 3, if you get it through, which you will. One concern I have, you've got the Heritage Conservation Area in the middle of this, Gibbs and Fast Street, a Heritage Conservation Area. So then they're going to be retained because they're all little workman cottages. And then you're going to have this massive development around them. Rockdale Public School, you cannot build something that high next to a public school, to any school, because of the overlooking, plus the overshadowing. We have this example with Cogra Public School, which is a disaster, and no one thought about it. So Gibbs and Fast Street, it's going to be interesting which this will go through, but they're heritage conservation areas, so they're different to the attachment of treatment of any other thing, but the recommendation, it's a lot of money, and I've been there for the, I think it was 2021, Bay Street, and it was fought very hard by all the residents. We spent all the money, and then it was thrown out. So we've actually we know the residents in Bay Street said they didn't want what they had, what they were offering. But part 3 of the recommendation, which has it changed?
It's just a
Councillor
request
Notes.
for tender.
Planning tender.
Yeah. Well,
To do the document.
yeah. So the thing is, the amount of money that you've got to spend is the bit that concerns me, because seeing the master plans, I think at least 2 have been through there, and none of them have proceeded. But if you're going to community consultation first, and this is crossing over with Rockdale, so there's a lot of angst about Rockdale, so maybe before anything's done, you actually, that the presentation you have is very good, but it doesn't show up when you're watching it online. You can't see all the things. So maybe there should be a public consultation before you do anything else, so that you actually maybe you're alert. Some of the people won't be so concerned, but I feel that you don't go and spend 300,000 and then nothing happens. And Bay Street has been assessed twice, I think. So it was really, it was good, and I think it would a lot more people would understand if it's published, because you actually, one time I watched, can we publish that on the website or not? The presentation? Yes. Because
Okay, so if we add then to the foreshadowed motion point 4 that the presentation tonight be made available publicly on our website. That would be point 4.
Good call.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, we've talked about it. It's been presented to the public. There's nothing confidential in that anyway. So I think that's a really good idea.
I believe what Councillor Fitzsimmons said was just remove all the 20 stories. That's the bit that I think has frightened everyone, and especially the Rockdale 20 stories. It should not be there. It's all a rock face now, and it's already 2 or 3 stories high now.
So, Councillor Barlow, then what about if we just added something just to say to consider surrounding elements, like you talked about the school, so that then that considers, so it's not a 20-story blanket approach. It's, it tapers at different places, but that'll all come out in the feasibility, won't it?
Including heritage as well, 20 stories.
Yeah, so that example schools and heritage areas.
Yeah. And take up.
The school is a heritage item, I think, and it's all on a rock face. That's the problem you have. It is a rock face. And all of Bryant Street's a rock face, and George Street, Bay Street, one side of it. So there's multiple problems with the height there.
Mr. Barr, did you want to respond to that?
Thanks, Chair. Rockdale Public School is actually in the area that we think you won't achieve viability, and so we wouldn't be looking at heights anywhere near that level in that area. You're also running into problems with the obstacle limitation surface for the airport and the PANS ops height limits from the airport as well, in all of Brighton, in fact. So anything over 51 metres or around 15 stories would require special dispensation from the airport. So when we've talked about 20 stories or more, that's just what it takes to make the economics work. It doesn't mean that that's going to give you a good urban design and amenity outcome. And so we're not recommending that everything or even a substantial amount of the area is 20 stories. In fact, I think it would only be very isolated if you were to look at building heights that high, because it would be really hard to protect solar access and amenity and those kinds of things, particularly in the public domain if you have large areas that go up to anything like that height limit. So just to be clear, that's not a recommendation, that's just an economic reality. And the urban design work that we would do next will then start to look at, well, what does it mean to be getting up to those height limits, and how do you have to massage the buildings up and down to make sure that it's a good place to live as well.
Can I ask another question? So,
yeah, Councillor Barr has exercised the right of reply, but I'm happy to hear last comment.
Because at the foreshadowed motion, number 2 in the moment says the council endorses proceed with the comprehensive master plan, and then it goes into the early engagement. Is there a way that we don't proceed with that this swapped around, that we do early engagement and then do the comprehensive master plan?
Chair, that is what's shown in that milestone diagram that I showed you before, so we can do that.
That was part of the presentation, Councillor Bretterhoff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but the number 2 and 3 in the foreshadowed motion, anyway, that confuses it
That's
a bit,
not a,
okay.
yeah, that's not necessarily the order. That's just the way that it's been written.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to, I'm going to put the motion. So do you want to proceed with the vote on that? Your original motion? Okay, so we're originally, so the motion moved by councillors Barlow and Strong, which is we note the finding of phase 1, which basically stops any further progress. This is a recommendation to the full council. It's not the final decision. All those in favour of councillors Barlow and Strong say aye. All those against? No. I declare that lost. The foreshadowed motion becomes the motion, which is moved by myself and councillor Curry. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Okay, that was really good debate. Thank you, councillors. We're moving on to CPE 26.011, which is the Draft Bayside Local Infrastructure Contributions Plan. If we can have a presentation on that one, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, council, just a quick recap. So tonight we're talking about the draft local infrastructure contributions plan or developer contributions plan. We put this up to council earlier in the year, and the decision of council was to defer consideration of it, to seek policy and legal advice in relation to what mechanisms could be put in place to protect existing contributions, and to bring it back to another committee meeting, which is where we are tonight. So in terms of what this project is, we're looking to consolidate 6 of our 7 current contributions plans into one. The Wallow Creek Bonar Street precinct plan will be left as is, and the other 6 plans will be amalgamated into one 712 plan, and that would impose a flat rate contribution ranging between 0.5% and 3% of the cost of development across the rest of Bayside. And the table there shows you how it's graduated up from smaller developments and developments that involve only single dwellings and the like. So the issue that council asked us to do some more work on was looking at the east and west precincts in Bayside, and how the contribution balances that we currently have and contributions going forward could be effectively spent in the areas that they're collected. So the advice that we received was that a single contributions plan supported by a policy that achieves that outcome is considered to be an appropriate way forward. Having multiple plans with the same rates offers little benefit, and there's an additional administrative burden with that. And there's also a risk that a higher than 1% rate may not be approved in both precincts, because the development in the future will be different across the LGA. The legislation does allow contributions to be pooled between plans and then repaid back into those reserves. That's a ministerial direction, and that's really to consolidate funds so projects can be delivered. That won't be something that we would need to contemplate in the foreseeable future, because the current contributions reserve is fairly healthy. So the outcome that we're looking for tonight is that we have developed a policy, as council requested, that will go alongside the contributions plan, and that essentially says that the contributions that have been collected and will be collected in the future will be spent in the precincts where they were collected. So as I said, that's essentially what the policy does. We would create 2 separate reserves, and they would be held separately, and they'd be reported on and accounted for separately for transparency. So those reserves will be kicked off by rolling over the balances of the current contributions plans in the east and the west precinct, and the report or the policy contains a table that shows you how those plans will be categorised into those 2 reserves. And again, Wallow Creek and Bonar Street would remain separate. So the next steps would be, if council's happy with this approach, if you endorse the contributions plan and the policy, they can both go on public exhibition together, so they support and reinforce each other. After exhibition or during exhibition, we'll have a discussion with the Department of Planning about getting the higher rate, 3%, approved. And then we'll come back to council with the results of exhibition and those discussions with the outcomes. And if council adopts the plan at that point, it goes through the regulatory process to be put in place. That's it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kassim, seconder. Councillor Barlow. Any speakers? Councillor Curry.
Yeah, thank you. So, question, now that you've got a policy and a process, an accounting process, why does that not apply then to the Wallow Creek as well in the same way?
Yep, through you, Chair. The Wallow Creek plan is different to the other 6 plans that we have at the moment. It collects a higher rate per dwelling. It's a 7-11 plan that collects a rate per dwelling rather than a percentage rate. It collects more than the $20,000 cap that's generally in place. And at the time it was approved, went through an IPART approval process. So that plan collects more than any of our other plans. And so we propose just to leave that one in place as a standalone plan. The remainder of the ones on the east and the west precinct will be rolled into those reserves going forward, the balances.
So just to clarify, the current balances that sit in the reserve will remain in those. So whatever is in reserve from the east will remain there and in the west will remain there. So there's no initial consolidation of funds. Okay, so they remain separate. They are then accounted for separately. And we continue to, whatever contributions are within the precinct, go straight into that. And I note the policy, but then what is the assurance beyond the policy that long term, when Mr. Barber, the general manager, and myself are no longer here, what is the assurity that that remains intact and will be followed, subject to a council resolution, just from a operational perspective?
Through you, Chair, the advice we got back was that there is really no way to set this in concrete. The contributions plan regime is one that's completely within council's control. So, setting up a plan, changing a plan, putting in a new plan, setting a work schedule is completely within council's control. It doesn't require state government approval except for the higher rate in this case. So there's no way really for one council to bind future councils completely. Having a policy just means that council's intention is very, very clear, and a future council would have to amend the policy and then amend the plan. So it'd be a very deliberate, public, transparent process that they went through. But the advice is there's nothing more that can be done to give an absolute guarantee that it can't change in the future.
More from an operational perspective, though, that how is that requirement enacted from an operational perspective?
Through you, Chair. So yeah, when the contributions are levied, they will be tagged to one of the reserves, the East or the West Reserve, and so when they're paid by the developers, they'll automatically flow into those reserves. When a project is taken from the work schedule and added to the capital works program, the funding will be drawn from the relevant reserve depending on which precinct it's in. They'll be subject to audit as well. Auditors will check that council's following its own policy. The contributions plan says the same thing, so and that's all very public. They have to be on our website. We've got to report each year what we've collected and what we've spent and on what. So all that information will be very visible to anybody who wants to see it.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Questions? No, I'll put the recommendation before us. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Last item on the agenda is CPE 26.012, which is the request to prepare a planning proposal for the Cooks Cove residual land. Report on that one, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wait for the presentation
This
to
is
come up.
residual land now.
Peter, next slide. Great, thank you. Councillors, you will recall a planning proposal last year for the Cooks Cove North site, which is north of the M5 motorway and south of the Cooks River. That was rezoned. Cooks Cove's on my mind. That has been rezoned. That doesn't show in the minutes. Thank you, governance. That has been resolved and finalised by the government. We've got now a few parcels of land to the south of the M5 motorway, Riverine Park and Barton Park primarily, as well as the Arncliffe Market Gardens that are still subject to controls within the precinct set. So what this proposal is seeking is council's endorsement to prepare a planning proposal and to have discussions with the government to move these items into the LEP. So as I said, currently there's a split planning framework across one precinct. Cooks Cove North is now within the LEP and Cooks Cove South is within the precinct set. The intention is to align the planning framework so all zoning and planning controls are within the Bayside LEP and not having to refer to the Bayside LEP and the precinct set, which will simplify the planning framework for this area. Currently, we've got issues with complexity between the planning staff and developers and proponents. Largely in this area, it is all council-owned land as well as some public land in the Arncliffe Market Gardens. But having all the planning controls within the Bayside LEP will make the situation simpler. So, as I said earlier, Cooks Cove North has been finalised. That was Amendment 6 to the Bayside LEP. That transitioned the zoning and development controls into the Bayside LEP. The issue we've got in relation to Cooks Cove South is given the age of the planning controls, they're not standard LEP zones. So we don't have an RE1 zone or an SP2 zone. You've effectively got a zone that says recreation or infrastructure. So this proposal would demonstrate a clearer and more consistent planning framework going forward. The Cooks Cove North site has established that precedent to transfer. So what we're recommending at the moment, we have not prepared a planning proposal. Before we prepare a planning proposal, we wanted to get council's endorsement to do so. For this, it's a fairly straightforward administrative change. So what we're seeking is council's endorsement to prepare that planning proposal in-house. We will submit a scoping proposal to the Department of Planning to get their feedback, given we would be transitioning the zoning and development standards from the SEP. Early discussions that we've had with the Department of Planning, they're supportive of us proceeding with this proposal. Once that's done, we'll draft the planning proposal, submit it to the local planning panel for their advice as per the normal process for all planning proposals, and then report it back to this committee and then to council. If council does endorse that process, we'll then proceed to gateway determination through the department and community consultation, as is the normal course for any planning proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Have a mover for that one, please. Councillor Curry, second to Councillor Kasim. I think it's fantastic the department's already supporting in principle. That just gives us a head start. Is there any speakers? Councillor Barlow.
Just a comment, is the Arncliffe Market Gardens, is that owned by the Department of Planning or?
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'm advised it's Crown land.
Crown land, oh, it's all Crown land. Fine.
Thank you. Any further speakers? It was really a good presentation, so you probably answered a lot of the questions anyway, so well done on that. All those in favour of motion before us, say aye. Anyone against? Aye. Thank you. I'll declare that carried, and there being no further items, I'll declare this meeting closed at 7:50 p.m. Thank you. Get going. Welcome, councillors, members of the public and staff. I declare the meeting open at 7:55 p.m, which is the City Works and Assets Committee meeting, 6th of May 2026. Everybody at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. We also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. All present are reminded that the YouTube video recording is an official record of council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure that there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of council staff. Item number 1 is our acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. Item number 2 is apologies. We do have one apology from Councillor Douglas. If you can move that, please. Councillor Curry, second, and Councillor Kasim. All those in favour say aye. I'll declare that carried. We have no other leave of absence or attendance via video link. Item number 3 is disclosures of interest.
I am.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm here on video link.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't on the running sheet. You have to move that way for Councillor Curry. Second, Councillor Kasim. All those in favour say aye. I declare that carried. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't see you, Councillor Berterhoff. It's on a screen in another room. I just caught you at the edge of my apologies. Didn't mean to exclude you there. Any disclosures of interest, councillors? There are no disclosures of interest. Item number 4 is minutes of the previous meeting, so I can ask 2 councillors who are present to move and second that, please. Councillor Barlow, seconded Councillor Strong. All those in favour say aye. I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Moving on to our reports now. CWA 26.014, which is a linear park fitness stations. You know, officer on that one, please.
Through the chair, before we do the presentation, if I can just introduce our acting manager of city projects, Corinne Elias. Now, don't be confused. Normally you would see her in a different role at council as our manager of development assessment. But given that Louise Farrell is on extended leave, we've used the opportunity to do some rotation amongst the staff to give them some experience. So Corinne's here tonight and she's going to do the presentation on the fitness stations.
Excellent.
Park.
Welcome.
Yes.
Here we go. You're on YouTube. Might go viral.
Thank you. I'll try to do Louise justice. I definitely can't fill her shoes, but I'll see how I go.
Let's put it up.
I can, but I'm not on. I thought.
It's okay. What is it? This one's classification.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on track. Okay, so this is a presentation about the fitness stations and the outcome of the community engagement. So the linear park in Mascot provides important public open space within a high density residential suburb. The land is owned by Sydney Water. It's with council's care and control and management at the moment and under a licence agreement. The park contains contaminated materials beneath the relatively shallow capping layer. The proposed fitness stations will be located in the central section of the park between Church Avenue and John Street. There's no suitable location. No suitable locations were identified in the southern section of the park, which is off Coward Street, due to site constraints. The northern section near Gardeners Road has been designated for a future off-leash dog area. So there are a range of site constraints which determine the placement and the sizing of the fitness stations, and they included the presence of significant subsurface utilities and associated zones of influence, easements, physical site limitations, and proximity to residential properties. This meant it's not feasible to construct a single consolidated fitness station containing multiple pieces of equipment, and the concept design layout proposing several smaller compact stations between 15 to 30 square metres in size, each incorporating 1 to 2 items of equipment to form a fitness trail. Each station accessible from the existing gravel path that runs through the centre. The proposed location have also been selected for positioning closer to the street setbacks, minimising potential impacts to surrounding high-density residential developments on both sides. So this is photos of the fitness stations, and the equipment provides both static and dynamic options with a mix of cardio, strength and functional training opportunities suitable for a wide range of ages and abilities. The proposed equipment is robust and is required to be surface mounted on concrete slab due to the site contamination and shallow capping layer. The Have Your Say campaign, conducted in February to March this year, was gauging the support for the proposal, identifying potential concerns and gathering suggestions for improvement. The 4 fitness station options were presented, with participants asking to rank their top 3 in order of their preference, noting that the current allocated project budget was to accommodate the 3 stations. We're seeking an additional $70,000 to allow the delivery of the 4 stations, including for wet pour rubber surfacing. A majority of the contributions and the responses were positive. The requests were also submitted for parallel monkey bars as an alternative station to Station 3. That's for the box jumps and balance beams. So that was considered, and it was recommended for substitution to replace the box jump and balance beams. So here is the timeline, which gives an indication of the proposed program for the project. Construction documentation, April to May, and so on, with the turf establishment in around about October to December, and hoping to open to the public in October. And so the recommendations there are just listed again from the report for you to have available.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Cttee moved that. Councillor Curry second. Is there any speakers?
Thank you very much. All very clear. My only question is, someone did make a suggestion for the table tennis, which obviously doesn't fit in that particular area. But I'm wondering if in the area which is not suitable, the smaller area, which was not suitable for the stations, is there any space for an outdoor table tennis? Is that suitable there at all, or if that's been considered?
Could we take that on notice? I think that would be a new project that we'd be looking at.
Yeah.
So I think for tonight, as you know, council's already resolved around the dog park.
Yes,
now
yes,
we've got the 4 fitness stations.
Yes.
We're happy to go away and have a look at what else could be accommodated.
That third
But
segment.
We
yeah.
need to take that on notice,
Okay,
and
thank you.
potentially that would be a budget bid.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, by default, Lynn, it's so narrow. I think the branding of it as a trail, it actually turned out really good. Rather than have it all concentrated, you sort of move from one to the next. So I think that's a really good outcome. I'll put the motion before us. All those in favour say aye. Any against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next one, CWA 26015, which is the classification of land in Walleye Street.
Move that way.
Move Councillor Curry. Second, Councillor Strong.
Second.
Officers report or update. We don't.
Take it,
Yeah, we've taken it as read. That's fine. Any speakers? Okay, I'll put the motion before us. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Next one is 26.016, the installation of lights at Scarborough Park. Thank you for your patience in the gallery. We're getting there slowly. If you have an office report on that one, please.
Certainly, Chair. Well, that's coming up. So Scarborough Park tennis courts, they're located adjacent to Sid Frost Hall in Monterey. The proposal, as you heard earlier, is to install 10 light poles to illuminate the courts that are there at the moment. This is intended to enable extended play outside daylight hours, and that would be until 10 p.m. Through the week and 7 p.m. on the weekends. The footings and the infrastructure were put in when the courts were refurbished, and at that time council decided not to proceed with the lights immediately. So it's just the poles and the light fixtures themselves essentially that need to be installed. A lot of the underground infrastructure is already in place. The proposal is from the current tenant who you heard from earlier this evening. They're proposing to fund and carry out the work, so there's no cost to council. When the upgrade works were considered a couple of years ago, that assessment and the approval actually included the lights. And there was a review of environmental factors done at the time by an ecological consultant engaged by council, and they considered the impact of lighting on the area around there as well. So that approval is already in place. Council deferred this proposal last year to seek community input before proceeding or before agreeing to the installation, and that's what brings us to tonight. So the community consultation was effectively done in two parts. There was a general public consultation done using Have You Say. You can see that there were 588 views of the page and 105 contributions, so a fairly good response there. The support in terms of the response was 57% in support, another 8% in support with some changes, and 35% didn't support the lights. The stronger support came from general users of the facility and recreation groups who make use of it as well. The second part of the consultation was with the local bush care group that looks after some of the bushland around the courts. That was a targeted engagement, and there was 8 people from that group who gave us a response. 75% of them supported the proposal with changes and 25% opposed it. Their key focus, as you would expect, was around environment protection and making sure that the lights were managed in a way that didn't impact on the wildlife in that area. So the reasons for support were around increasing the access to sport and recreation, so being able to be used more hours of the day, particularly in winter, and the benefits to community health and activation of that space in terms of passive surveillance. The concerns that we heard were around light spill and the impact on wildlife. Some concerns from close by residents, and those included noise, traffic, and just residential amenity from light spill, and also some questions around the operating hours. So in terms of those impacts, as I mentioned, light spill was dealt with in the ecological impact assessment that was done as part of the approval process. The residential amenity concerns we think can be mitigated by the lighting design. There are Australian standards around shielding lights to ensure that light spill is minimised, and they will be adopted in the installation of the lights here. Other concerns around impact can be mitigated in terms of the operating hours. There is a 70-metre buffer between the courts and residents, which is essentially bushland, and we feel that that's a mitigating factor as well. And we'll also work with the tenant to make sure that they work within the parameters that have been set. So the recommendation is to proceed with installation of the lights at the tenant's cost, and the operating hours are mentioned in the report. Light spill controls have been in place, and environmental compliance in terms of following what was recommended in the study that was done earlier by the ecologist. So the recommendation is that council does give approval to go ahead with the lights and notes that the infrastructure is already largely in place apart from the poles and light fittings. Notes the outcomes of the community engagement and gives the tenant the go-ahead for the installation. Thank you.
Excellent. I like the Ken Rosewell reference too. There we go. That was a surprise. You never know what you're going to get in these presentations. Loved it. I didn't know that. There we go. Fun fact for the evening. Have a move, Councillor Curry. Second. Councillor Brederhoft. Any speakers? Councillor Strong.
I think it's great. I went there a couple of years ago and it was just all just lumpy and it was just looking very sad. And it's great that this is happening and it's going to work. And the environmental considerations, it seems, have been taken in and amendments made. So, yeah, good one.
Yeah, that's as a result of our good tenant, isn't it? Looking after it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's overdue to have lighting in that precinct. The community's crying out for recreation after work. They're coming, even now you get home at 6 o'clock, it's dark. You can do what you need to do and go and have some tennis there. So not only for the operator to activate, but it's a council-owned community asset, and to activate that and to be seeing more people using it with really good operators in place, it should be completely supported. So all those in favour of the motion before us say aye. Any against?
Aye.
Thank you. Any against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Okay, last item for the evening. CWA 26017, which is the Mascot to East Lakes Active Transport Facility concept design.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
We'll just have the presentation coming up. But just to remind councillors, council endorsed the concept and feasibility design for the Coward Street Active Transport Connection, effectively from Mascot to East Lakes. And the purpose of this report is advising council on the feedback that we received during consultation. The scope and purpose, so council received a Get Active grant from Transport for New South Wales for feasibility and concept design. Council's scope extends from Burke Road through to East Lakes, and from Burke Road back towards the Alexandra Canal is the responsibility of Transport for New South Wales. So we're looking at that component effectively east of Burke Road. There is two components. It's working? That's fine. There are two components. It's a separated cycleway for the majority of the length, as well as a shared pathway in areas where a separated cycleway was difficult. There's two options in relation to separated cycleway infrastructure, which you can see on the screen. The first is an at pedestrian level separated cycleway, and there is also an at road level separated cycleway, and there's pros and cons to both, as you can see on the screen. So just to recap the opportunities for this project, it's all about improving accessibility for cyclists and pedestrians to major destinations, including local schools, town centres, parks and open space, existing and future cycleways, and improved signalised crossings. Through this process, we're also looking at increasing street trees and general amenity in the area, as well as improve road safety. Yes. We put that in to see if you were watching. And recapping some of the challenges, we need to finish the cycleway, obviously, from that other image, but there are a number of challenges in this area given the significant freight movements and high traffic volumes. So there are conflict zones ensuring bus, freight, pedestrian and cyclist safety. We've also very carefully through the concept design considered the minimisation of losing on-street parking, making sure vehicle travel lanes are still provided for, and protecting mature tree canopy, whilst maintaining existing and future active frontages to local businesses along the route. Just recapping on the findings of the feasibility study, this was all provided in the previous report to council, but west of Burke Road, Transport will deliver that scope that's shown in dark grey. In blue, it's a recommended shared path due to limitations with bus lane widths and bus stop locations, existing traffic congestion, and it also connects to the existing shared path to go towards the south. And then east of Botany Road, it is recommended to be a separated cycleway shown in red due to less bus conflict, less traffic congestion, available road widths, and it's mostly residential land use. Now, it's moved for some reason on that slide, but that green or teal box is Universal Street. It needs to be further south. For some reason, it's moved to the north. That's not a separated cycleway, and we'll get into the options for Grafton Street in a few slides. Importantly, one of the key findings from the feasibility study is parking loss is minimised. There should only be parking loss on an intersection where effectively parking that is provided at the moment is within the 10-metre tangent line of the intersection. So the engagement outcomes, we exhibited this concept design and feasibility study between the 20th of Feb and the 23rd of March. It was viewed at quite a significant amount of times from our community, which is fantastic. Nearly 2,500 project views for this project. We received 183 contributors to the project. Obviously, 2,500 people looking at it. Over 600 people actually downloaded all the documents. We received 19 emails from members of the community and 8 formal letters. We distributed over 1,500 letters. As you recall, Council, you asked for all the options to be put on public exhibition, and we provided all that detail that was in the feasibility study. Pleasingly, 71% of participants support the draft proposal, with some suggesting changes. So in relation to the support, the primary levers of support there was the desire for the community for a separated cycleway everywhere, not simply in parts of the site. And we explained to the community the rationale for the split between a separated cycleway moving into a shared pathway. There was desire from a number of people for the scope to be extended, which one of the recommendations is, as part of future projects, we look at potentially extending to the north to link into the East Lakes redevelopment, as well as a recommendation from Transport, which could be a complex piece of work, to look at extending the separated cycleway entirely along Cowd Street so it doesn't go down O'Riordan Street and back up. But there are a lot of constraints within that portion from Burke Street to, what's the other street? O'Riordan Street. Even with the support, there was some concern from the community about impacts to parking. We've analysed that. There should not be any loss of parking as a result of this proposal, except a parking space that's probably not a legal parking space at the moment, very, very close to those intersections. There is concern with traffic congestion generally, potential emergency access to properties with a separated cycleway, which can be resolved through the detailed design process of the proposal, conflict and safety concerns. However, the intent is to improve safety and reduce conflict, especially where cyclists are currently riding within the door zone of parked cars. For those that don't support, there was general opposition to cycleways, think they're a waste of money and we shouldn't provide them. Opposition to any changes in parking or routes. There is a fear of increased traffic congestion as a result of the project, and same in relation to emergency access, concerns about being able to get in and out of driveways, which, as I said, would be able to be resolved as part of detailed design. And a perceived lack of poor planning in relation to why are we doing projects such as this when we should be focusing on other projects. So that's the flavour of the consultation. Now, in relation to Grafton Street, so that's to the east before it goes up to Gardeners Road, there were 3 options that we did consider for Grafton Street. We're recommending option A and option C, and you probably wonder how you can do 2 options in one street, but I'll explain. Option A is a quiet way, so as cyclists come off the separated cycleway and into Grafton Street, that will be a proposed 30km/h speed limit in that street, subject to relevant approvals through the traffic forum. That enables cyclists to travel in the middle of the road in a slower speed environment for those that are fairly confident to cycle in the road corridor. For those less so, we're also proposing a shared pathway on the north side of Grafton Street for those that want to be separated from any traffic, noting that Grafton Street is a relatively quiet local street. We're not proposing a separated cycleway in Grafton Street, given the significant loss of parking in a residential street. So the recommendations tonight, councillors, is that you receive and note the outcomes of community engagement undertaken, that you endorse that combination of option A and option C for Grafton Street, as I just explained, that you endorse the feasibility report and concept design, and note that there are a number of connections that we may want to further explore as part of future capital works projects. And following that, pending funding decisions in future financial years, project can move into detailed design, which will include applications for grant funding to be able to deliver the project in time. And then next steps, sorry, there's one more slide. Next steps, in relation to this grant-funded concept design work, we'll acquit and finalise the grant back to Transport for New South Wales, update the Have Your Say webpage with Council's decision, and as I said, detailed design and grant funding for future stages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a really good presentation. Have a mover for that, please. Councillor Kassim, seconded. Anyone? Councillor Strong, thank you. Any speakers? Councillor Curry.
Yeah, just a question. So, can you go back to the map, please? Have you got where it at? Because it's covered there.
Where Grafton Street.
Yeah.
So it's to the south
Yeah.
of the.
I'll
It's
use mine.
Yeah.
So on the attachment here, which was on of the feasibility report on page 18. So you had it comes up universe. So is it still it's Coward, and then is it going to Universal? It's going to Universal. Yeah, you covered it.
Yeah, through the chair, that's exactly.
You're going down Universal. Now, why did you not choose 10? Why did you choose Grafton as opposed to number 10 on here, which I can't even see what that is? Page 18 of the feasibility.
So number 10 is Mascot Drive, which has a slower speed environment, and it does avoid the existing bus route, but it would also be quite a narrow road, so we don't have as much road width we'd probably end up losing parking in that particular street. So because of the strong sentiment about parking, we mitigated that wherever possible. That's the main reason for it.
Okay, thank you. And so in relation to, so it goes past East Lakes Public School, yeah? So where's the bike path? Is it on the opposite side of the road to the public school?
Yes, we'd expect it to be on the western side.
Yeah.
Because that would require fewer crossings and less conflict with peak time at the school.
Yeah, so how do we mitigate? And we always have this problem with speed humps and crossings. And are we actually thinking about doing the bike path on the inside of the speed hump crossing, or are we wanting the rider to go over the crossing? So there's a crossing out the front of East Lakes Public School.
So we talked about pedestrian level or road level cycleway. So this is one of those examples where you have to make a decision. I don't know what the answer is at this moment in time, but you can use the level, pedestrian or road level, to serve whatever purpose you're trying to mitigate. So if we're trying to slow the cyclists down and get them over a hump, then it would probably be road level and they'd slow down and go over the hump. If we're worried that we want to prioritise that pedestrian movement, then there'd have to be some treatment around that crossing point. And that's really the challenge with any cycleway going past any pedestrian crossing is how, because cyclists become a vehicle at that moment
Yeah.
relative to pedestrians.
So at what point does that get considered? Because aren't you asking us to endorse something where we haven't like that'll come through in the next detailed design?
So the point of a concept design, councillor, is to understand that it is feasible to do, and a number of these challenges at specific areas will be worked through it as part of detailed design. But we believe it can work. We just need to look at some of these areas where speed humps are, or the particular design when we cross roads, and also where there's infrastructure in relation to the shared path, where there are street lights, for instance, or bus zones. We then need to look at that at a detailed design. But as part of a concept, it is feasible to do. And we are aware that there are a number of these issues that need to be worked out in that
But
next
they will
stage.
come back to us.
Correct.
And did we get any feedback? Did we specifically consult with Grafton Street residents?
Sorry, through you, Chair. Specifically, we didn't engage with the people that lived in Grafton Street. They unfortunately, we didn't ask the question, do you live in Grafton Street, to understand the specific input from them. But it was relatively clear that they were very concerned about loss of parking, and they were very concerned about having cycles on a shared path. That's why we proposed two options, because what we didn't want was the cycle traffic to run too fast through a shared location. So this gives them the option to go on the road, and the other issue was the safety of children in that precinct. So it's a high child presence area, and so that's the reason why we've proposed two lots, because the third alternative was to provide a separated cycleway, and then they'd lose all their parking, which we know they don't want. So it's the most robust, I suppose, solution for that precinct.
And just further to that, councillor, through the chair, there were, when we talk about consulting, there were, as I said, over 1,000 letters that were sent out to people within this area, in this study area. So people in this area know, and we did get submissions from people in Grafton Street in relation to the two options and the preference for certainly the shared cycleway to the north, the shared path, as well as people supporting a slower speed environment through that, but not supporting a separated cycleway. That's from the residents. From other user groups, for instance, there was feedback received that it should be a separated cycleway all of the way. So you have that tension between cycle advocacy groups and others, as well as the concerns of the local community, which we've tried to balance through the final concept design.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because it's those residents in those smaller streets that are, have to live with it day to day. And just one other question, thank you, is in relation to Florence Avenue now. That's a quite, you've got the bowling club on one side and you've got the high rise there. Is the intention that there's a lot of cars parked along that strip all the time, but all that parking is staying on Florence, is it? And then the cycleway runs, where's it running, on the inside of the parked cars or on the outside, or we don't know that yet?
We expect it to be in between the pathway and the cars. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the most important locations in terms of keeping it at grade, that pedestrian level, because of the number of people that are there. So when someone gets out of their car, they are on the same level as the footpath, and there's a, there'd be some sort of gap from the car to the cycleway, and then they are on that, you're not getting out, walking over an obstacle, walking across a cycleway and then going onto another curb. That's the best solution for a cycleway. What we see often is the at-grade solution, which is the less expensive option, but it has other problems that go with it. So I think we need to pick and choose how we spend that money in the future, and that's one of those locations, the high pedestrian use, to increase that safety.
And it is a very narrow street too. So if you're coming out with a cycleway, I don't know that you still have 2 clear lanes. So just something to take on notice, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Just for me, if that map's back there, just put the map up. I can show. I got a new admin assistant as a director. Is that? I called this out at the time. This bit here, and I can see it's in the report, and it's noted as a high risk area. I think even at this stage, you need to include just putting some sort of surface treatment or bollards or something there, just very clear from the outset, because all what's happening, like people are going to just go straight across that. They're not going to go down and up. We know that. But just from now, you can put multiple bollards in it, things, so there's just impossible, because particularly around this precinct as well, there's so many takeaways and e-bike deliveries and scooters. They will just zoom along there, and there's so many people in that zone. So I think from the outset, either some sort of bumpy footpath, but that might create trip hazard, but some sort of treatment where a bicycle, you have to get off and walk it. So you can, but you can navigate, but not in motion. And the second one is just the connectivity right up the top in the northeastern corner, which is covered there, how that sort of connects. It's a bit of a tricky one, and maybe that'd be in the detailed design up here. It's written as number 11 in.
Thanks. We have, through the concept design, when you go into the attachment of the report, it actually has the whole route literally linked. So we've shown how it links into effectively up to Gardner's Road.
Yeah.
But we will, through the detailed design, obviously concept is just lines on a map that shows.
I'm just trying to visualise what that is, because the levels there are, and then it goes over a bridge. So how do you get up? Just detailed design question, exactly. Probably, but any other feedback or questions? No. Could we just have the motion on the screen, please? Thank you. Okay. There's no changes. Why was that highlighted? Was that for a particular reason? Oh. Right. That was okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, I'll put the motion in front of us with the 5 there. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Councillor Brederhoff still with us? Yes. Thumbs up, I think.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, thank you. That's all right. Okay, thank you. I'll declare that carried, and there being no further items, I'll declare the meeting closed at 8:32. Thank you.